The Valen research station floated in the darkness of space, far from any major trade route or military outpost. It was a small place, built for science and discovery, not for war. Over 3,000 beings from 12 different species lived and worked there, studying the strange energy readings that came from a nearby nebula. They had families. They had dreams. They had no idea that death was coming for them. Dr. Kevin Moore stood in the observation room, watching the purple swirls of the nebula through the thick glass window. He was one of only 6 humans on the station, a xenobiologist who had spent the last 2 years studying alien plant life. He loved his work. He loved the peace of this remote corner of the galaxy. But that peace was about to end. The alarm started as a soft beeping sound. Then it grew louder. Red lights flashed along the ceiling, and the calm voice of the station computer spoke words that made Kevin's blood run cold. Warning! Hostile fleet detected. 40 vessels. Scorath identification confirmed. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. Kevin felt his heart pound in his chest. The Scorath. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name. They were conquerors, slavers, destroyers of worlds. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. A single Scorath warship could destroy a colony. 40 of them could burn a planet to ash. He ran to the main control room, where chaos had already taken hold. Alien scientists shouted in a dozen different languages. Some were crying. Others stood frozen in fear. Station Director Malos, an elderly Krethian with gray scales and tired eyes, tried to maintain order, but his voice was lost in the noise. Everyone, please remain calm, Malos said, but no one was listening. Ambassador Terrell, a tall and thin Fanari diplomat, pushed his way to the front of the room. His feathers were flat against his head, a sign of deep stress among his species. We must prepare surrender documents immediately. The Scorath spare those who submit without resistance. It is our only chance. Kevin shook his head. No, we don't surrender. Terrell turned to look at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. Human, you do not understand. We have no weapons, no warships, no means of defense. Fighting is not an option, and help is too far away. Surrender is the only logical choice. Help is not too far away, Kevin said. He walked to the communication console and began typing rapidly. There are human patrol fleets in the neighboring sectors. I'm sending a distress signal through the Terran emergency network. Terrell made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cry of frustration. Even if your ships received the message, they could never arrive in time. And even if they did arrive, what could they do against 40 Scorath warships? Your species is young. Your technology is not advanced. You would be sending your people to die for nothing. Kevin finished typing and pressed the transmit button. The signal went out into the darkness of space, carrying a simple message. SOS, Valen Station. Scorath attack imminent. 3,000 civilians. Request immediate assistance. You don't know humans very well, Kevin said quietly. We don't ignore calls for help. And we don't surrender. The other humans on the station gathered around Kevin. There was Dr. Hannah Brooks, a psychologist who worked with alien families. There was Marcus Webb, an engineer who kept the station running. There was young Lena Foster, a botanist who had only arrived 3 months ago. They were scientists, not soldiers, but they stood together with calm determination on their faces. The alien scientists watched them with confusion. Why were the humans not afraid? Why were they not preparing to kneel before the Scorath? It made no sense. Station Director Malos approached Kevin slowly. Dr. Moore, I appreciate your courage, but Ambassador Terrell speaks the truth. No fleet in the galaxy would risk itself for a small research station. We are not important enough. We are not valuable enough. The mathematics of war do not favor rescue. Kevin looked at the old Crethian with steady eyes. Director, where I come from, we don't measure the value of lives with mathematics. Every person on this station matters. Every child hiding in their parents' arms right now matters. And somewhere out there, human ships are already changing course to come here. You cannot know that, Tyrell said. I know my people, Kevin replied. The hours passed slowly. The alien scientists prepared their surrender documents despite Kevin's protests. Families huddled together in their quarters, holding each other close. Some prayed to gods that humans had never heard of. Others simply waited in silence for the end to come. Then the Scorth fleet arrived. 40 warships dropped out of hyperspace and surrounded the station like wolves circling a wounded animal. They were massive vessels, covered in weapons and armored with thick plates of dark metal. The largest ship, the flagship, moved to the front of the formation. Its commander activated a communication channel that broadcast to every speaker on the station. This is War Chief Droxen of the Scorth Dominion, a deep and cruel voice announced. You have 1 hour to surrender your station and prepare for processing. Those who comply will be assigned to labor colonies. Those who resist will be executed. There will be no negotiation. There will be no escape. Your time begins now. The message ended, and silence filled the control room. Ambassador Tyrell turned to the others with grim acceptance on his face. We must respond. We must tell them we surrender. But Kevin Moore was smiling. What is wrong with you, human? Tyrell demanded. Why do you smile at a time like this? Kevin pointed at the sensor display on the main screen. 17 new contacts had appeared at the edge of the system, moving at incredible speed toward the station. They were smaller than the Scorth ships, but they flew in perfect formation, like a fist preparing to strike. Because, Kevin said, our fleet is here. The humans on the station looked at each other and nodded. They had never doubted. They had never lost hope. Because they knew something that the rest of the galaxy was about to learn. When humanity heard a cry for help, they answered. Always. Commander Linda Harris stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 17 human ships. 40 Scorth warships. The numbers were not in their favor, but Linda had stopped caring about numbers a long time ago. Numbers did not win battles. Courage did. Training did. The refusal to let innocent people die did. All ships have arrived in formation, Commander, reported Lieutenant Nina Collins from the communication station. Admiral Peterson is hailing us. Put him through, Linda said. The face of Admiral Frank Peterson appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes, the kind of lines that came from years of difficult decisions. But his voice was calm and steady, the voice of a man who had faced death many times and had never flinched. Commander Harris. Status report. 17 ships in position between the Scorth fleet and Violent Station, Admiral. All crews standing by. The enemy has not yet opened fire. Good. Our objective is simple. Protect that station. Protect those people. We don't leave until every civilian is safe. Is that understood? Understood, Admiral. Peterson nodded. The Scorth have never fought humans before. They think we're just another young species to be conquered. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Peterson out. The screen went dark, and Linda turned to her bridge crew. They were young, most of them, but they were ready. She could see it in their eyes. No fear. Only determination. Captain Walsh, she said to her tactical officer, what's the status of the Scorth fleet? Gregory Walsh studied his console with the focus of a man who had been born for battle. 40 warships total, Commander. 1 flagship, 12 heavy cruisers, 27 support vessels. They're holding position around the station, but they haven't noticed us yet. Wait, correction. They've detected us. The flagship is turning, On the Scoreth flagship, War Chief Droxen stared at the sensor readings with annoyance. 17 small ships had appeared out of nowhere and positioned themselves between his fleet and the station. He tapped a control panel, and the identification data appeared on his screen. Earth. Terran United Fleet. Humans. Droxen laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound that echoed through the bridge of his ship. His officers looked at him with confusion. War Chief? Asked Subcommander Vexus, his second in command. What do you find amusing? Humans, Droxen said, still laughing. The young species from that small blue world. They send 17 ships against my 40. They are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Perhaps both. Vexus shifted uncomfortably. War Chief, I have heard stories about the humans. They come from a death world. Their planet is filled with dangers that would kill most species. They are said to be extremely durable and surprisingly aggressive in combat. Stories, Droxen said with contempt. Rumors spread by weak species to explain their own failures. The humans are nothing. They have been traveling among the stars for less than 2 centuries. They are infants in a galaxy of giants. We will crush them and then take the station as planned. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. The face of a human female appeared on his screen. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and eyes that showed no trace of fear. Droxen found her calmness irritating. Human Commander, he said, you have made a grave mistake coming here. Withdraw your ships immediately, and I will allow you to leave with your lives. Continue this foolish stand, and you will die with the rest of the station. The human female did not look impressed. This is Commander Linda Harris of the Terran United Fleet. You are ordered to withdraw from this sector immediately. The beings on that station are under our protection. Any attack on them will be considered an attack on humanity itself. You have been warned. Droxen stared at her for a long moment, then burst into laughter once again. Ordered? You order me? Little human, I command 40 warships. You command 17. You cannot win this fight. Then stop talking, Linda said, and come find out. She cut the communication channel. Droxen's laughter died. His eyes narrowed with cold anger. No one spoke to him like that. No one challenged the Scoreth dominion and lived. He would destroy these arrogant humans, and he would make them suffer first. All ships, he commanded. Attack formation. Destroy the human fleet, then proceed to the station. Leave no survivors. The Scoreth fleet began to move. 40 warships spreading out into an attack pattern designed to overwhelm their outnumbered enemy. It was a formation they had used 100 times before against 100 different species. It had never failed. On the bridge of the Valiant, Linda watched the enemy approach with a small smile on her lips. She knew what the Scoreth were thinking. They were thinking that this would be easy. They were thinking that humans were weak and foolish. They were thinking that superior numbers guaranteed victory. They were wrong. All hands, Linda announced through the ship-wide communication system. Battle stations. This is not a drill. We are engaging hostile forces to protect civilian lives. Remember your training. Trust your crewmates. And remember what we're fighting for. She looked at the tactical display one more time. 17 against 40. Outnumbered more than 2 to 1. The odds were terrible, but humans had faced terrible odds before. At Thermopylae, at Rock's Drift, at 100 forgotten battlefields throughout their bloody history. And somehow, impossibly, they had found ways to survive. They had found ways to win. Today would be no different. Helm, Linda said. Take us forward. All ships, follow the Valiant. We meet them head-on. The human fleet surged toward the enemy, and the battle for Valen Station began. The first shots of the battle lit up the darkness of space like lightning in a storm. Scoreth weapons fired bright red beams of destruction, cutting through the void toward the human ships. The aliens on Valence Station watched through observation windows and sensor displays, expecting to see the small human fleet torn apart in seconds. But the human ships did not die. The USS Valiant took a direct hit to its forward hull. The impact shook the entire vessel. Sparks flew from damaged systems. Crew members stumbled but stayed at their stations. And the ship kept moving, kept fighting, as if the blast had been nothing more than a strong wind. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Engineer Paula Grant from her station in the engine room. Sealing now. All primary systems still operational. Keep us in the fight, Commander Linda Harris ordered. Return fire. The Valiant's weapons spoke with thunder. Human missiles streaked across space and slammed into a Skoroth cruiser. The enemy ship's shields flickered, then failed. A second volley tore through its armor and ripped the vessel in half. Debris scattered in all directions as the cruiser exploded. First blood belonged to humanity. War. Chief Droxen watched from his flagship with growing disbelief. One of his cruisers was gone, destroyed by a single human ship. A ship that had taken damage that should have crippled it, but was somehow still fighting at full capacity. Impossible, he whispered. Sub-Commander Vexus stood beside him, his face pale with fear. War Chief, the humans. Their ships. They're not falling back. They're not even slowing down. How are they taking this punishment? Droxen had no answer. He had fought a dozen different species across the galaxy. He had seen fleets scatter at the first sign of casualties. He had watched entire armadas surrender after losing a single vessel. But these humans were different. They absorbed damage like it meant nothing. They kept coming, kept shooting, kept destroying his ships with terrifying efficiency. On Valence Station, Ambassador Tyrell stood frozen in front of a display screen. His feathers stood up in shock as he watched a human destroyer take 3 direct hits from Skoroth weapons, then spin around and destroy the ship that had attacked it. This is not possible, he said, his voice barely a whisper. No species fights like this. No species survives damage like this. Dr. Kevin Moore stood beside him, watching the battle with pride in his eyes. We're Deathworlders, Ambassador. Our planet tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, extreme temperatures. Everything on Earth wants us dead. So we evolved to survive. We evolved to endure. We evolved to fight back against anything that threatens us. But the pain, Tyrell said, the suffering. How do they keep functioning? Because there are 3,000 people on this station who need protection, Kevin replied. Because there are children hiding in their parents' arms right now, waiting to see if they will live or die. That's how we keep functioning. That's what makes us fight through anything. The battle raged on. Human ships moved through the Skoroth formation like wolves among sheep. They took hits that would have destroyed vessels from other species, and they kept fighting. Their coordination was perfect, each ship covering the others, working together as if they shared a single mind. Chief Engineer Paula Grant worked miracles in the engine room of the Valiant. Systems failed, and she brought them back online. Power fluctuated, and she stabilized it. Fires broke out, and her team extinguished them without hesitation. She was covered in sweat and burns, but she never stopped working. Rerouting power from secondary life support to forward shields, she reported. We can breathe thin air for a while. We can't take another hit to the bow without shields. Understood, Chief, Linda replied. Good work. Keep it up. On the bridge, Lieutenant Nema Collins tracked the battle with calm focus. 12 enemy ships destroyed, Commander. No human vessels lost. 3 of our ships have heavy damage, but remain combat effective. 12 ships. The humans had destroyed nearly a third of the Skoroth fleet, and they had not lost a single vessel. Droxen's forces were learning a terrible lesson about the Deathworlders of Earth. Dr. Hannah Brooks moved through the civilian sections of the station, helping to keep the alien families calm. Many of them were crying. Others sat in stunned silence. But some had started to watch the battle displays with something new in their eyes. Hope. "The humans are winning," a young Krethian child said to her mother. "Look, they're protecting us." Hannah knelt beside the child and smiled. "That's right. And we're not going to stop until you're safe." In space, another Scoreth cruiser exploded under combined fire from 3 human destroyers. The debris joined the growing field of wreckage that marked the death of Scoreth ambitions. War Chief Droxen watched his fleet crumble and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. He was afraid of humans. He was afraid of these small, stubborn, impossibly durable creatures who refused to die, refused to retreat, refused to accept defeat. They were not like any enemy he had ever faced. They were monsters in the shape of soft-skinned beings, and they were destroying everything he had built. "War Chief," Vexus pleaded, "we must retreat. We have lost 12 ships. We will lose more. These creatures are not natural. They are something else entirely." Droxen wanted to agree. He wanted to order a retreat and flee this cursed place. But his pride would not allow it. He was War Chief of the Scoreth Dominion. He did not run from lesser species. He did not accept defeat. "No," he growled. "We will not retreat. We will destroy them. All ships, focus fire on the lead human vessel. Bring me the head of their commander." The Scoreth fleet turned its attention to the Valiant, and the true test was about to begin. The Valiant shook violently as concentrated fire from a dozen Scoreth ships struck its hull. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel. Lights flickered. The deck tilted as the ship struggled to maintain its position between the enemy fleet and the station it was protecting. Commander Linda Harris gripped her command chair as another blast rocked the bridge. A console exploded nearby, sending sparks across the room. Lieutenant Nina Collins was thrown from her seat but climbed back immediately, blood running from a cut on her forehead. "Shields at 12%, reported Captain Gregory Walsh. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 9. "We're taking heavy damage, Commander." "Hold position," Linda ordered. Her voice was steady despite the chaos around her. "We don't move. We don't give them a clear shot at the station." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Paula Grant was fighting her own battle. Fires burned all around her. Crew members rushed to seal breaches and repair damaged systems. The heat was unbearable, and the air was thick with smoke, but Paula kept working. "I need more power to the shields," she shouted into her communicator. "Diverting from weapons." "Negative, Chief," Linda replied. "We need weapons online. We can take the hits. Just keep us flying." Paula cursed under her breath, then made adjustments to the power distribution. It was an impossible task, but humans were good at doing impossible things. She had learned that lesson long ago on Earth, in a world that constantly tried to kill everything that lived on it. "You heard the commander," she yelled to her team. "Keep this ship together. Whatever it takes." Navigator Second Class Donna Reed sat at her station, her fingers dancing across the controls. She was only 23 years old, and this was her first real battle. Her hands were shaking, but she forced herself to focus. People were counting on her. The station was counting on her. She could not fail. "Incoming missile barrage," she announced. "Evasive pattern delta." The Valiant twisted in space, avoiding the worst of the attack. But 3 missiles still struck home, and the ship groaned in protest. Somewhere deep in the vessel, metal tore and systems failed. On the Scoreth flagship, War Chief Droxen watched with grim satisfaction. The lead human ship was finally taking real damage. It was wounded. It was weakened. A few more volleys, and it would be destroyed. And then nothing would stand between his fleet and the station. "Concentrate fire on that vessel," he commanded. "Finish it." But Sub-Commander Vexus was looking at the tactical display with growing horror. "War Chief, we have lost 23 ships now. 23. And the humans still have not lost a single vessel. Their damaged ships are still fighting. They are still destroying our forces." Droxin slammed his fist against his command console. "Then we destroy the station directly. If we cannot kill these human demons, we will complete our mission and leave them with nothing but ash." He issued new orders, and 7 Scoreth cruisers broke away from the main battle. They accelerated toward Valen Station, weapons charging for a devastating assault. The civilians on the station watched them coming with terror in their eyes. Admiral Frank Peterson saw the move from his position aboard another human ship. His voice came through the fleet communication channel, calm and commanding despite the desperation of the moment. "Commander Harris, Scarth vessels are moving to attack the station directly. You need to intercept." Linda looked at her tactical display. The Valiant was barely holding together. Her shields were gone. Her hull was torn in a dozen places. Her crew was exhausted and bleeding. But none of that mattered. The mission mattered. The lives on that station mattered. Hell, intercept course. Put us between those cruisers and the station. "Commander," Gregory Walsh said quietly, "if we take the fire meant for the station, we might not survive." Linda turned to look at him with fire in her eyes. "Then we die protecting innocent people. That's not a bad way to go. Execute the order." The Valiant limped forward, placing itself directly in the path of the attacking cruisers. The Scoreth ships opened fire, and the human vessel took the punishment meant for the station. Metal twisted. Compartments decompressed. Crew members were thrown from their stations by the force of the impacts. Medical officer Dr. Craig Palmer worked frantically in the medical bay as wounded poured in. His supplies were running low. His assistants were exhausted. But he kept treating patients, kept saving lives, kept doing his duty. "Another group incoming," someone shouted. "Find them beds," Craig replied without looking up. "No one dies on my watch." On the station, Dr. Kevin Moore watched the Valiant sacrifice itself for them. The ship was being torn apart, but it would not move. It would not retreat. It stayed in position, absorbing fire, protecting the civilians it had been sent to save. "They're dying for us," Ambassador Terrell whispered. "They're dying to protect strangers." "That's who we are," Kevin said. "That's what it means to be human." The Scoreth cruisers focused all their fire on the stubborn human ship blocking their path. Victory was moments away. Droxin could almost taste it. Then 3 human destroyers appeared behind the attacking cruisers. They had circled around during the chaos, positioning themselves for a devastating strike. Their weapons fired as one, and 4 Scoreth cruisers exploded in rapid succession. The remaining 3 tried to turn and face this new threat, but it was too late. The human destroyers tore them apart without mercy. On his flagship, Droxin watched his attack force die. He watched his fleet shrink from 40 ships to 19, then to 12. The humans were everywhere, striking from angles he had not expected, coordinating with a precision that should have been impossible for such a young species. "Full retreat," Vexus screamed. "We must retreat now." Droxin opened his mouth to refuse, but then his flagship shuddered. 3 human ships had targeted him directly. His shields failed. His hull cracked. Fire spread through his bridge as systems exploded all around him. The war chief of the Scarth Dominion felt true terror for the first time in his life. And he finally understood what the word Deathworlder really meant. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice breaking. "All ships retreat." The surviving Scoreth vessels turned and fled, disappearing into hyperspace. leaving behind the wreckage of their ambitions and the bodies of their fallen comrades. The battle was over. The humans had won. Silence fell over the battlefield. The guns stopped firing. The explosions faded. All that remained was the wreckage of 31 Scoreth warships drifting through the void like broken toys. Discarded by an angry child, the human fleet had survived. Every single ship. Damaged, battered, bleeding from 100 wounds, but alive. Still fighting. Still standing guard over the station they had come to protect. On Valen Station, no one moved. No one spoke. The alien scientists and their families stared at the display screens showing the aftermath of the battle, unable to process what they had just witnessed. 17 human ships had faced 40 Scoreth warships and had won without losing a single vessel. It should have been impossible. It defied everything they knew about warfare, about mathematics, about survival itself. But the evidence floated before them, and they could not deny it. Humanity had saved them. The battered USS Valiant docked slowly with the station. Its hull was scarred and torn. Entire sections had been exposed to the vacuum of space. Smoke leaked from damaged compartments. But the ship still moved. It still functioned. It had refused to die. Commander Linda Harris walked off the ship and onto the station, followed by members of her crew. They were exhausted. Many were injured. Blood stained their uniforms. But they moved with quiet dignity, the dignity of warriors who had done their duty and survived. Station Director Mallows approached Linda with tears in his old eyes. His hands trembled as he reached out to take hers. In his long life, he had never seen anything like what he had witnessed today. "Commander Harris," he said, his voice breaking, "I do not have words. In all my years, I have never seen such courage, such sacrifice. You came to save strangers. You nearly died for beings you had never met. How can we ever repay you?" Linda shook her head gently. "We don't need payment, Director. We don't do this for rewards. We do it because it's right. Because every life matters. Because when someone needs help, you help them." Ambassador Terrell stood nearby, his feathers flat against his head in a display of deep humility. He had been wrong about the humans. He had been so completely wrong. "I doubted you," he admitted. "I said your ships could not arrive in time. I said you could not win. I said you would be sending your people to die for nothing. I was a fool." "You were afraid," Linda replied. "Fear makes everyone foolish sometimes. What matters is that your people are safe now." Dr. Kevin Moore approached with the other humans from the station. They had watched the battle from safety, protected by the fleet that had answered their call. Now they stood among their military counterparts, united by something deeper than rank or profession. "Thank you," Kevin said simply. "Thank you for coming." Linda looked at him and smiled. It was a tired smile, the smile of someone who had given everything and somehow found a little more to give. "We heard the call. We came. That's what we do." Admiral Frank Peterson arrived on the station shortly after, personally overseeing the recovery operations. He walked through the halls speaking with alien families, reassuring them that they were safe, that the Scoreth would not return. His calm presence brought peace to the frightened civilians. In the medical bay, Dr. Craig Palmer and the station's doctors worked side by side to treat the wounded. Human and alien medical staff shared techniques and supplies, learning from each other as they saved lives together. The barriers between species seemed smaller now, less important. In the face of shared survival, Chief Engineer Paula Grant lead repair teams from the Valiant to help restore the station's damaged systems. She worked alongside alien engineers, showing them techniques for emergency repairs that humans had developed over centuries of surviving harsh conditions. She never complained about her own injuries. She simply kept working. Days passed. The damaged human ships were stabilized. The station returned to something like normal operation, and the story of what had happened at Valen spread across the galaxy like wildfire. News networks on 1,000 worlds broadcast the same incredible tale. 17 human ships against 40 Scorth warships. 0 human vessels lost. 31 enemy ships destroyed. A research station with 3,000 innocent civilians saved from slavery or death. Galaxy had never heard of anything like it. Species that had feared the Scorth for generations suddenly felt a new emotion, hope. If the humans could defeat them so completely, perhaps the Scorth were not invincible after all. Perhaps there was a way to stand against tyranny and survive. Requests flooded into Earth's diplomatic channels. Worlds wanted human protection. Colonies asked for human military presence. Governments that ignored humanity before now sought alliances and friendship. The Scorth Dominion released a quiet order to all their fleets. Earth and its territories were to be avoided. The humans were not to be provoked. The word Deathworlder was spoken in Scorth command centers like a curse, like a warning, like the name of a monster that hunted in the darkness. On Valen Station, a small ceremony was held before the human fleet departed. Representatives from all 12 species gathered to honor the crews who had saved them. Director Malos spoke of gratitude and friendship. Ambassador Terrell apologized for his earlier doubts and pledged that his people would never forget what humanity had done. Commander Linda Harris accepted their thanks with quiet grace, then addressed the crowd one final time. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," she said. "There will always be those who seek to harm the innocent, to take what is not theirs, to spread fear and suffering. But as long as there are humans among the stars, you will never face that darkness alone. Send us a signal. Call for help, and we will come. That is our promise to you." The human fleet departed, leaving behind a station full of beings who now understood what it meant to have humanity as an ally. In the years that followed, the phrase "Remember Valen" became famous throughout known space. It was spoken when people needed courage. It was whispered when hope seemed lost. It was shouted in defiance when enemies threatened, because everyone knew what it meant. It meant that somewhere out there, the Deathworlders of Earth were watching. And when the call for help came, they would answer. They always did.